Good morning, everyone. The Subcommittee on Indian and Insular Affairs will come to order. Without objection, the chair is authorized to declare recess of the subcommittee at any time. The subcommittee is meeting today to hear testimony for an oversight hearing entitled Implementation of the Compact of Free Association Amendments Act of 2024. Under Committee Rule 4F, any oral opening statements at hearings are limited to the chairman and to the ranking minority member. I therefore ask unanimous consent that all other members' opening statements be made part of the hearing record if they are submitted in accordance with Committee Rule 3.0. Without objection, so ordered. I ask unanimous consent that the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Tiffany, the gentleman from Guam, Mr. Moylan, the gentleman from the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, Ms. King-Hines, and the gentleman from Hawaii, Mr. Case, be allowed to sit and participate in today's hearing. Without objection, so ordered. I will now recognize myself for an opening statement. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here for today's hearing examining the implementation of the Compact of Free Association Amendments Act of 2024. I first want to take a moment to acknowledge a great loss on this dais and in the halls of this institution. Congressman Doug LaMalfa passed away suddenly last week. Mr. LaMalfa was an exceptional legislator, a dedicated defender of his district, and a strong voice on natural resource issues. Doug was also a genuinely decent man. He once held this very gavel, and I'd be remiss not to acknowledge the great legacy that he has left behind. So I'd ask, please, for a moment of silence to honor Mr. LaMalfa. Thank you. And Doug, we will surely miss your presence here in this room. Okay, the Compacts of Free Association, or COFA, are the foundation for our special relationship with the Freely Associated States, or FAS. The FAS comprise 3 sovereign Pacific Island nations, the Republic of Palau, the Republic of the Marshall Islands, and the Federated States of Micronesia. The COFA are mutually beneficial agreements between the United States and each of the FAS nations. These agreements provide strategic security opportunities for the United States, including a sustained U.S. presence in the Pacific. In return, the FAS receive economic assistance as well as defense guarantees. Together, these agreements reflect the United States' commitment to its Pacific allies and to our broader strategy of peace through strength. As a committee of jurisdiction, the House Committee on Natural Resources played a crucial role in passing the Compact of Free Association Amendments Act of 2024. But our work is far from over. Authorization was a critical step, but oversight is what ensures these commitments are carried out fully, faithfully, and on time. The People's Republic of China seeks to undermine the United States' leadership in the Indo-Pacific region and to exert influence over the FAS through economic as well as operational coercion. Now, more than ever, it is essential that the COFA agreements are faithfully implemented as Congress intended. That includes implementation across agencies, delivery of promised services, and accountability for how compact resources are used. Today, we will hear from administration witnesses on the progress of key provisions, including where implementation is working, where it has lagged, and what remains to be done. It is important that we not only hear about successes, but also where work remains. This committee values transparency, and effective oversight depends on a clear and honest assessment of not only the progresses, but also the challenges. We are also joined in the second panel by ambassadors from each FAS, whose perspectives are essential to assessing progress in COFA implementation. The COFA agreements put into action the United States' commitment to some of our closest allies in the Indo-Pacific. By fully implementing the COFA agreements, we signal not just to the FAS, but to all our allies in the region that the United States remains a reliable and strong partner in the security and prosperity of the Pacific. Our goal today is to ensure that the compact remains not just a promise on paper, but a living commitment carried out as Congress intended. With that, the chair now recognizes the ranking minority member for any statement. Representative Ledger-Fernandez.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that moment of silence for our colleague with whom we had just spent time in the Grand Tetons on a congressional delegation. He was indeed an incredibly decent and funny man and committed. He always showed up. He always showed up on this committee. But I also want to welcome our witnesses today, especially our friends, the ambassadors for the freely associated states of the Marshall Islands, Micronesia, and Palau. And we are here today because the United States made a commitment to you. We made a promise to you, our allies on the Blue Continent, a promise that I don't believe the Trump administration has yet lived up to. And this committee traveled so we could see firsthand why it was so important to enter into the COFA agreements. What were the benefits to the United States, and what were the requests of the COFA states? What did they need? Like, what would this exchange be? And based on that information, and I thank the chair who took us all there on that trip, Congress came together and on a bipartisan basis renewed the agreements. And these are not symbolic partnerships. Our partnerships with the freely associated states have formed a bedrock of U.S. cooperation for nearly 4 decades. Through the compacts, the United States military secures exclusive access across the Pacific, beyond Hawaii, all the way to Palau. They include positions on one of the outermost island chains for strategic defense against China. This access allows us to keep the People's Republic of China in check as it seeks to expand its influence and control of the Pacific. Just last month, the People's Liberation Army conducted its largest military exercises to date around Taiwan. The Chinese Navy literally encircled Taiwan as the ships launched missiles into the surrounding waters. While China carried out these massive drills, President Trump and Secretary Hegseth focused the might of the U.S. Navy not on the presence in China, around China, but on blowing up small boats in the Pacific. But China is not losing its focus or backing away. Instead, it continues to test the limits of America's commitment to the Pacific. From the Pacific, as we saw, China can directly threaten the United States. That's why the military access our COFA partners provide is so vital. In exchange, the United States promised to provide $7.1 billion of mandatory funding over the next 20 years to meet U.S. obligations under the new agreements. Congress authorized this commitment. President Biden signed it into law. We expanded access to VA healthcare for COFA veterans living in their home islands, including expanded telehealth options, which they talked to us about directly, mail order pharmacy benefits, and travel benefits to eligible veterans. I want to remind everybody, these are veterans who served in our military services, and we want them to get the health care they need. The citizens of the freely associated states serve at higher rates than those on the mainland United States. These patriotic veterans deserve access to the VA health care that they have earned. Congress gave the administration the authority and responsibility to coordinate across agencies to carry out these commitments without delay. But more than a year after Congress renewed the compacts, the Trump administration has yet to fully carry out its commitments. It's an embarrassment when the U.S. fails to honor the promises we made. Today, veterans on the island still await the expanded VA benefits. They must travel off-island to access the health care they need. Many veterans from the freely associated states make the difficult decision to remain on the U.S. mainland where they can access that VA care instead of returning home. Our failure to deliver on our promises will eat away at our goodwill with these nations. And when you lose the goodwill, you lose everything. And so I believe that the compacts of free associations remain one of the smartest national security investments this country has made, and I look forward to a bipartisan Republican-Democrat commitment to make sure that we honor those promises And I think that oversight hearings like what we are doing today, listening directly to the ambassador, is so very important, which is why I'm so glad we are having this hearing today, and I look forward to the testimony. And with that, Mr. Chair, I yield back.
Thank you, Ranking Member Ledger Fernandez. At this time, the chair now recognizes the chairman of the full House Committee on Natural Resources, Mr. Westerman, for an opening statement. Mr. Westerman.
Thank you, Chairman Hurd, and thank you to the witnesses for being here today. As we all know, the United States holds a special relationship with the Republic of Palau, the Republic of the Marshall Islands, and the Federated States of Micronesia, collectively known as the Freely Associated States, or FAS. This relationship with our Pacific allies is memorialized through the Compact of Free Association, or COFA. These are agreements that we maintain with each of these nations. These COFA agreements are the cornerstone of the United States leadership in the Pacific and an embodiment of peace through strength. As the People's Republic of China continues its campaign to undermine the United States' global leadership, our firm commitment to the FAS must be demonstrated and strengthened daily through the full implementation of the COFA as Congress intended. I want to take a moment to reiterate the work that led to this moment. My colleagues and I worked tirelessly to ensure a timely renewal of the COFA agreements. In the 118th Congress, the Natural Resources Committee held 4 oversight hearings on COFA and moved the Compact of Free Association Amendments Act of 2024 through regular order and with bipartisan support. As Ranking Member Ledger Fernandez mentioned, in August of 2023, we took a historic bipartisan congressional delegation to the Freely Associated States. We met with governmental leaders, and we reinforced the United States' continued commitment to our FAS partners. The delegation saw firsthand the strength of the U.S. and the FAS partnership and how the PRC is attempting to spread its oppressive and malign influence in the Indo-Pacific. Today's hearing is the second oversight hearing on the implementation of the most recent iteration of COFA. When Congress passed the COFA reauthorization legislation in March of 2024, we knew that the job was not over. That was only the first step. It is now essential that Congress continue to oversee the implementation of the legislation to ensure that the COFA provisions are carried out in a manner that Congress intended, including timely interagency coordination, faithful execution of statutory requirements, and the delivery of promised benefits to our FAS partners. I look forward to hearing from administration witnesses about the work accomplished in implementing COFA and the work that remains. It is my understanding that the Interagency Working Group met at the end of last year, and I look forward to updates on its progress and next steps. Also look forward to hearing from our witnesses representing the FAS. Hearing directly from our FAS partners is critical to understanding what has been accomplished and where additional action is needed. Thank you again to the witnesses for being here today to discuss this critical topic, and I yield back.
Thank you very much. The chair now recognizes the ranking member of the full House Committee on Natural Resources, Mr. Huffman, for his opening statement. Mr. Huffman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Before I begin, I have a unanimous consent request. I'd like to enter into the record an article from January 6th in the New Scientist that's entitled "The Pacific Islanders Fighting to Save Their Homes from Catastrophe," and it speaks to the way climate change is causing desperate measures in many Pacific Island communities just to stay above rising sea levels.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, everyone. I do want to begin by thanking the dignitaries who are with us here today from Palau, Marshall Islands, and the Federated States of Micronesia. Your presence here is very much appreciated, and it underscores a basic truth that too often gets lost in Washington. The compacts represent agreements between sovereign partners, and the relationships we're discussing today are built on decades of mutual commitment and shared sacrifice. I also appreciate participation of the Departments of State and Interior. These agencies carry important responsibilities for delivering the commitments that Congress has already made. And today's hearing is an opportunity to ensure implementation is moving with the speed and the seriousness that our partners deserve. The premise of the hearing is straightforward and a rare bipartisan moment. Democrats and Republicans agree, I believe, that the United States must follow through on the deals that we make with our allies, especially when national security is at stake. Our nations entered into compacts that secured U.S. defense and security rights across strategically important areas of the Pacific. And in exchange, we promised reasonable assistance like health care for veterans who bravely served in the U.S. Armed Forces. This military presence governed by the compacts is a core element of our Indo-Pacific security approach. And Congress recognized that reality when we updated the COFA compacts in 2024. But it's been about a year since that time, and I am concerned, I think many of us are concerned, that President Trump has seemed to be slow-walking delivery of our end of that bargain. We need to make sure that's not happening. At a time when America's global leadership and trust is on shaky ground because of the volatility of our president and some of the folks around him, like the Defense Secretary, we should not let this administration drop the ball and risk losing our military dominance in such a critical region. Compact implementation is inseparable from our credibility on the global stage. When execution lags, the consequences are significant because it affects our partners' confidence. It affects military planning and perceptions of American leadership. That credibility is especially important right now. China continues to expand its reach across the region using economic leverage and foreign influence campaigns designed to weaken democratic resilience and reshape the regional order. Recent PRC military activity around Taiwan only underscores the stakes and the urgency that we need to show with respect to defending American credibility in the region. So when our competitors are pressing forward, the United States cannot afford to drift, delay, or undermine our own interests. Oversight of compact implementation is overdue, and this committee has a responsibility to insist on clarity, coordination, and results. So I want to be very specific about what I am looking for today. First, I think we need a clear, candid account of where implementation stands across the federal government. The compacts require coordinated work with the state, interior, the VA, the Defense Department, and other agencies. If coordination is working, we should be able to see it reflected in timeliness, in deliverables, and measurable progress. If it's not working, we need to know what's broken and what will be done immediately to fix it. Second, the committee needs clarity on the status of specific deliverables that have been authorized by Congress, including the administration's progress on expanding VA healthcare services for COFA veterans in their home islands. These are tangible services with direct implications for veterans' access to care. It's important for this committee to understand what's been completed, what remains pending, and the anticipated timelines going forward. And then third, we need accountability around decision-making. When delays occur, who owns them? When milestones are missed, who is responsible for getting implementation back on track? If additional administration actions are required, what are they and when will they occur? Finally, we should consider all of these issues in the broader strategic environment. American leadership and trust are already under strain. Volatility at the top has real costs. And one of the best ways to counter that damage is to demonstrate through competent execution that the United States can still act with consistency and keep faith with its allies. That is what the compacts demand. That is what is at stake in this conversation, and it's what our partners deserve. So my hope is that we leave this hearing with a clear picture of the gaps and a credible plan to close them with firm timelines that reflect the seriousness and commitments of Congress that we've made to our compact partners. And I yield back.
Thank you, Ranking Member Huffman. Now, at this time, I'd like to introduce the witnesses for our first panel. The first is Mr. Angel Demapan. He is the Deputy Assistant Secretary, Office of Insular and International Affairs for the United States Department of the Interior here in Washington, D.C. Welcome, Mr. Demapan. And our second witness is Mr. Anton Grubel, who is the Director of the Office of Australia, New Zealand, and Pacific Affairs at the United States Department of State here in Washington, D.C. Welcome, Mr. Grubel. Let me remind both of our witnesses that under committee rules, you must limit your oral statements to 5 minutes, but that your entire written statement will appear in the hearing record. To begin your testimony, we talked about this briefly when I met you guys before. Just press the talk button on the microphone. We do use timing lights here. Green means go. Yellow means you have a minute left. And when you see the light turn red, I would ask that you please wrap up your statement or the answer to your question as quickly as possible. I'm also going to allow each of you, as well as the witnesses on our second panel, when we get to that second panel, to testify before member questioning begins. With that, The chair now recognizes Mr. Demapan for 5 minutes. Mr. Demapan.
Thank you, and good morning, Chair Hurd, Ranking Member Ledger Fernandez, Chairman Westerman, and Ranking Member Hoffman, and the members that are present today. Thank you for the opportunity to testify before you today regarding implementation of the Compact of Free Association Amendments Act of 2024. I am Angel Demapan, and I serve as the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Insular and International Affairs at the Department of the Interior. The department, through the Office of Insular Affairs, administers and oversees federal assistance provided under the COFA Agreement to the Republic of Palau, the Republic of the Marshall Islands, and the Federated States of Micronesia, collectively known as the Freely Associated States. The COFA agreements serve as the bedrock of the United States' special relationship with the FAS, advancing economic growth, promoting self-sufficiency in the FAS, and reinforcing partnerships that support a free and open Indo-Pacific. The COFA agreements are more important than ever, as the People's Republic of China has intensified efforts to undermine and compromise our critical national defense apparatus hosted in these important island nations. The PRC has deployed an extensive influence operation aimed at corrupting, and coercing democracies. The COFA agreements are vital in countering this threat, as they provide the FAS with the tools to enhance democratic resiliency. OIA is prioritizing steadfast oversight of compact resources, ensuring that investments drive accountability, infrastructure growth, and improved delivery of public services. Since the enactment of the COFA Act of 2024, which provides $6.5 billion in economic assistance, the Office of Insular Affairs has already made approximately $1.5 billion available to the FAS in accordance with the 20-year schedules outlined in the compact agreements. The administration continues to strengthen compact partnerships through its appointments of U.S. members and designees to the Joint Economic Management Committee, GEMCO, the Joint Economic Management and Financial Accountability Committee, GEMFAC, and the U.S.-Palau Economic Advisory Group, as well as meetings with representatives from the FAS. In July, DOI hosted the third U.S.-Palau bilateral economic consultations, which highlighted Palau's progress in implementing significant fiscal reforms and accountability measures that reaffirm the strength of the U.S.-Palau partnership. In August, the department chaired annual GEMCO and GEMFAC meetings to review and approve the FSM's and the RMI's fiscal year 2026 budget proposals and strategic development plan. Interior collaborates extensively with interagency partners to advance shared goals in the FAS and the broader Pacific region. Recently, OIA awarded $20 million to Palau, utilizing funds provided by the State Department to support reforms to its civil service pension system. This grant will be released in phases, contingent upon Palau's enacting necessary and sustainable reforms to ensure the long-term viability of its civil service pension fund. OIA continues to support initiatives that promote long-term economic growth in the FAS, including investments in tourism, critical infrastructure, healthcare, and education, toward projects such as construction of and improvements to school buildings, roads, water systems, airports, and electrical grids. While much work remains, the department remains steadfast in working with our FAS partners to ensure that COFA funds are properly utilized. Our goals are to increase economic opportunities, reduce outmigration, and deny PRC the opportunity to weaken our Pacific partnerships. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify on the department's commitment to carrying out its obligations under the COFA agreements. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Demapan, for that testimony. The chair now recognizes Mr. Grubel for 5 minutes. Mr. Grubel.
Okay. Good afternoon, Chairman and Ranking Member Fernandez, and distinguished members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on the United States' enduring partnership with the freely associated states, the Republic of the Marshall Islands, Federated States of Micronesia, and the Republic of Palau. The security and prosperity of the United States are closely tied to the Pacific region, reflecting our shared values and interest. The freely associated states are not just our neighbors, they are essential partners. Their trust and cooperation are vital to our national security and economic interest. And we've now completed the first year of implementing the renewed Compacts of Free Association, marking a significant milestone in our commitment to the Central Pacific and the people of the freely associated states. These COFA agreements, they're the cornerstone of our engagement in the region. This is a region that is increasingly central to United States security and global stability. And as geopolitical competition intensifies, the Pacific strategic sea lanes, abundant resources, and vibrant communities, they're more important than ever to the United States and our allies and partners. Our continued partnership with the FAS strengthens regional resilience, it supports economic development while upholding peace and security. So the Department of State, in close partnership with the Department of the Interior, we're co-leading the implementation of the 2023 Compact Agreements. And we're not simply paying attention, we are taking action at the highest levels of government. This past fall, Deputy Secretary Landau made his first trip to the Pacific, visiting Palau and the Marshall Islands. And he also met with all three FAS presidents. Then Vice President Vance also met with Palau President Whips, underscoring the administration's commitment. These high-level engagements are producing tangible results. For example, we have supported the rebuilding of the Marshall Islands Parliament building, advanced Palau's pension reform, and deepened cooperation on infrastructure and economic resilience. And in partnership with Taiwan, we are enhancing the Marshall Islands disaster response and air infrastructure with the purchase of American-made Cessna aircraft. In the Federated States of Micronesia, we continue to promote regional connectivity through the East Micronesian Cable and other telecommunications projects. But we're not resting on past achievements. We are committed to doing even more for the FAS in the years ahead. That is why next week, alongside Assistant Secretary DeSombre and Department of Interior's PDAS Bill Hague, we will travel to the Republic of the Marshall Islands and the Federated States of Micronesia. The purpose of our travel is to strengthen our ongoing dialogue, ensure effective COFA implementation, while aligning our efforts with our shared goals. By engaging directly with stakeholders, we can gain valuable insights into the practical impacts of our programs and identify areas for improvement. So this firsthand understanding enables us to address challenges proactively, adapt our approach, while reinforcing our commitment to being the partner of choice for the FAS. Our visit demonstrates the United States' dedication to transparency, responsiveness, and mutual respect. Our mission is clear: deliver on the 2023 Compact Agreements. So we deeply appreciate Congress's steadfast support for our work. Congressional leadership has been instrumental in driving progress and ensuring accountability. Your engagement empowers us to deliver meaningful results for our Pacific partners. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Grubel, for that testimony. The chair will now recognize members for 5 minutes of questions, and we will begin by recognizing the gentleman from Arkansas, Mr. Westerman, for 5 minutes. Mr. Westerman.
Thank you, Chairman Hurd. Mr. Demipan, could you speak to the importance of interagency cooperation in addressing threats posed by adversaries in the Pacific?
Thank you, Chairman Westerman. The importance of interagency collaboration cannot be overstated. In order for us to fully implement the commitments of the Compact Agreements, the Department has been actively engaged with our interagency partners in the federal government. through consultation bodies and through the interagency group on the FAS. The department also chairs the GEMCO and the GEMFAC. And so through these bodies and the Palau Economic Advisory Group, we are able to increase and keep interagency collaboration active to ensure that all of our agencies are aware of ongoing responsibilities and commitments.
So I know that Interior and State have kind of a co-lead role on COFA. We just remind us all the other agencies that are involved in COFA.
So along with Interior and State, we have the Department of War, we have Department of Treasury, and then because education and healthcare and infrastructure are large parts of our economic commitments to the FAS, we have HHS, Education, and Department of Homeland Security.
So are we getting good participation from all the agencies?
Our communications with the agencies remain active and engaged.
So how is OIA working to curtail the influence of the PRC in the freely associated states and the Pacific territories?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, can you repeat that question?
How is OIA working to curtail the influence of the PRC in the freely associated states and the Pacific territories?
From OIA's side of its responsibilities, the economic assistance grants that we provide and the commitments to the trust fund are centered around building stability, security, and prosperity in these sovereign nations to ensure that the United States commitment is met in return for its full access of defense and security in the nations.
And what controls has DOI put in place to ensure that COFA funds are being used appropriately and for the intended purpose?
There are several controls that the DOI has in place, and like I mentioned, the GEMCO, the GEMFAC, and the Economic Advisory Group are the bodies that actively monitor and track the expenditure of these funds. The budget approves the budgeting proposals that are put forward by the FAS. And then we also have, at the staff level, a weekly cadence of engagements and meetings with the FAS countries.
Are you seeing any weak areas with any of the other agencies on implementing the provisions in COFA?
I have not, Mr. Chairman. I think the coordination has been working very well.
So you think the VA's living up to all their obligations from COFA?
I can't speak for the VA, but I can tell you from Interior's side that our coordination continues and Interior always stands ready to actively assist.
So, Mr. Grubel, at the end of December last year, the U.S. and Palau signed a new national security agreement that seeks to degrade the PRC's efforts to disrupt Palau's economy and politics. How is the PRC actively working in Palau and the freely associated states to disrupt these nations and undermine U.S. interest in the region?
Thank you for that question, sir. Yes, so we are concerned about organized crime groups linked to the PRC who might be involved in smuggling drugs and narcotics into Palau, who are trying to do malign influence and political warfare in that country. So this package that we came up with was, we established it to help give Palau the resources and for law enforcement, maritime domain awareness, and cybersecurity to push back and effectively counter these attempts by China to undermine, to achieve their objectives.
All right, Mr. Chair, I'm almost out of time. I yield back.
The gentleman yields. At this time, the chair recognizes the gentlewoman from the state of New Mexico, Ms. Ledger Fernandez, for 5 minutes. Ms. Ledger Fernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to our witnesses for testifying. And both in the questions of the chair of the Natural Resources Committee and in, I think, our own understanding, the issuance of the VA benefits is really essential. So I am a bit disappointed that we don't have the VA testifying today, and so we're going to ask the two witnesses to provide us information that they're aware of, since it is supposed to be interagency. You know, at the September 2024 subcommittee hearing, a VA representative who was here said that they had begun the assessment of the hospital and medical services within the freely associated states to determine how to provide for the needs of the local, like on-island, veteran population. Since that work had begun under the Biden administration, however, I don't think we have seen the progress that is expected. And in fact, in April 2025, an internal VA memorandum had directed the VA officials to sustain the status quo, which is not consistent with the intent of increasing VA services. So Deputy Assistant Secretary Demapan, what actions is the Office of Insular Affairs taking with the VA to fix this problem and deliver veteran benefits as Congress intended?
Thank you, Ranking Member. From the Department of Interior, we have actively communicated with the Department of VA because the concerns about veteran benefits have been at the forefront, and the highest priority concerns that we have received from the FAS countries. And so in recognition and in acknowledgement of those serious concerns from the COFA countries, Interior has actively offered our assistance in any way that we can to work with the VA. And so we are
Have they
constantly
indicated
working.
to you when they might begin actually delivering their services that were promised almost 2 years ago?
I don't have that update at this time, Ranking Member, but I'd be happy to take it back.
With regards to the Office of Freely Associated States Affairs at the State Department, there is the requirement of the Freely Associated States unit at the State Department. Can you describe the full-time staff that have been assigned to the unit, and what is the status of that?
Yes, Ranking Member. So we have in the Office of Australia, New Zealand, Pacific Island Affairs, we have 2 officers in our Pacific Bilateral Unit who are dedicated to working on freely associated states issues. And then, of course, then we have a unit chief and 3 other desk officers who provide assistance when necessary to their colleagues.
Okay, and are those 2 officers that are assigned, is that their sole assignment, or what are they splitting their time between?
Yes, no, that is their sole assignment. So they focus on bilateral relationships and interagency issues dealing with the COFA for just RMI, FAS, FSM, and Palau.
So when we were at the Freely Associated States, we heard about the fact that there was, in addition to, I think, the military action around the areas, the interference with the maritime, the fishing, lots of other stuff, there was a lot of economic activity coming from the PRC, coming from China. How are you seeing that as the economic activity, the investments continuing, and how do they compare to where they were maybe 2 years ago?
No, so there is a lot of foreign investment and business activity from China in the freely associated states, all 3 of them, even the ones that recognize Taiwan. So there's a lot of Chinese-owned or affiliated businesses in the restaurant and retail sector, fisheries, processing, and then there's also, and then just in general, import-export trading issues. And I do think it is increasing. There's even car dealers are starting to show for used cars, some cars that were sold.
And I'm running out of time, but how do you see that with regards to, I mean, we've had some interesting economic issues here. We've had the tariffs. We've had a lot of other issues that have caused economic disruption in the United States and inflation. How do you see what's happening? I'm running out of time, but I think I'd like to learn more, and we will submit a written question, because I would love to understand better how these economic forces are shaping the viewpoints and the little political viewpoints on the ground in the freely associated states. So we'll submit that as a written question as my time is expiring.
you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
The gentlewoman yields. At this time, the chair recognizes the vice chair of the subcommittee, the gentlewoman from American Samoa, Ms. Radewagen, for 5 minutes. Ms. Radewagen.
Talofa lava. Thank you, Chairman Westerman, Chairman Hurd, and Ranking Member Ledger Fernandez for holding this important hearing today. A warm welcome to all the ambassadors. Thank you for traveling all this way to present your testimony. As we're all aware, one of the hiccups with COFA implementation was with VA programs and services for COFA citizens who made the sacrifice to serve in the U.S. military. To that end, I want to thank Representative King Hines for introducing H.R. 6652, the U.S. Vets of the FAS Act, to explicitly provide certain VA services to our FAS allies, and I'm proud to be a co-sponsor of the bill. I also want to express my thanks to my colleagues who worked on the NDAA to include language for briefing on the issue. Mr. Demapan, the problem with VA can be summed up as a misalignment between legislative intent and the execution of discretionary authority. Are you aware of any other aspects of the COFA agreements that may be lacking in explicit legislative direction? Do we need to mandate additional reports on the other aspects of the agreements? To be clear, I don't mean to sound as if I'm reprimanding anyone for working with what they were given, but if we can improve how we keep the legislative and executive branches aligned in our mission, I'd appreciate the feedback. Mr. Demapan?
Thank you, Congresswoman. And at this point, I'm not aware of any other issues that require further refinement. I believe that the existing reporting requirements that are in place today give us the opportunity to effectively communicate the progress and implementation concerns, if any, to Congress.
And welcome, Mr. Greibel. My friend, Congress included the requirement that the State Department established a unit within its Bureau of East Asian and Pacific Affairs responsible for managing FAS relations and implementation. And in a previous conversation with the committee, State Department had given a goal of standing up a full FAS unit by 2029. Can you provide a status update on the unit and speak to how the State Department is managing FAS relations and implementation in the interim?
Yes, thank you, Congresswoman. Yes, the State Department does intend to establish a dedicated FAS unit in line with, according to the mandates, legislation's mandate within that time frame by 2029. In the interim, we are managing bilateral relations with the 3 FAS countries and the implementation of the COFA agreements within the Pacific Islands unit of the Australia, New Zealand, Pacific Island Affairs Office. So there are 2 desk officers solely dedicated to FAS issues, and then they also have the backing of the other 4 officers, as well as myself as the office director and my deputy director when their workload increases.
The implementation of COFA is important to ensure the U.S. remains a strong and stable partner in the Indo-Pacific. It's a statutory requirement that an annual report describing the activities and recommendations of the interagency group is submitted to Congress. Thank you for your submission last night of the 2024 Interagency Group Report, which detailed the work of the Interagency Group from March 9, 2024 to March 9, 2025. My question is, the transmitted 2024 report noted weekly discussions between State, DOI, and Treasury. Do these weekly discussions still occur? And if yes, what issues have been raised most recently?
Congressman, I can't say it's exactly weekly, but I'd say if you just count email, it's pretty daily that either I myself am getting hold of Insular Affairs, or else one of my desk officers are talking with the Department of Interior officials. So it's definitely weekly, whether you call that a meeting or not. And then we do also have more formal settings. And I think like next week's joint trip to FSM and RMI with Acting Assistant Secretary Bill Hague and Assistant Secretary Michael DeSombre is evident of how they're working together on this issue to implement most effectively since they're.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yield back.
The gentleman yields. At this time, the chair recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Huffman, for 5 minutes. Mr. Huffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Director Grubel. I want to turn briefly to another place where the concept of free association compacts has been discussed recently, and I realize it's not the region that you oversee right now, sir, but I'm talking about Greenland. And as you know, President Trump has publicly expressed a fixation on Greenland, even telling the New York Times that it is, quote, psychologically important to him that the United States own it. And so, sir, I want to ask if your department has begun any discussions, internal planning, or contingency analysis regarding a potential change in the United States relationship with Greenland beyond our existing arrangements with Denmark and the government of Greenland. And again, I understand you are in a different region, but you do oversee these compacts in that region, and one would assume that if the administration is serious about pursuing this particular mechanism, that they would be involving you in some level of planning and consultation. So there's the question.
No, thank you for that question, sir. No, I would have to go back to Department of State and ask and see any issues regarding with Greenland. But I can't tell you that my office, no one's been in touch with my office.
All right, well, that is good to hear. Assistant Secretary Demipan, can I ask the same question?
Thank you, Ranking Member. At this point, we have not received any communications on that matter.
All right. Well, that is good to hear because I think many of us, and I would dare say a strong bipartisan majority in the Congress, believe that even talking about invading or taking over Greenland or strong-arming our way into some sort of arrangement that strains the NATO alliance, that would shred our global credibility and trust on the world stage is absolute madness. And if anyone proposes to use the compact mechanism to achieve a goal like that, to tell the world that we are on a colonial conquest binge, that needs to come through this committee, and I hope you will convey that up the chain as candidly as you possibly can. Director Grubel, I want to ask you about USAID, because the compacts provide that a U.S. agency will assist in disasters, and USAID previously led coordination of that assistance. What's the status of transitioning those responsibilities from USAID to State Department?
No, thank you. That's a good question. So that was one of our biggest priorities over the last year, was to get that transition from USA to the State Department. So the Bureau of East Asia Pacific Affairs focuses on helping the FAST prepare for natural disasters, and then the Bureau of Population, Refugees, and Migration at State Department will take the lead in any disaster response.
All right. Thank you very much. That's all I have for you right now, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields. At this time, the chair recognizes the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. McDowell, for 5 minutes. Mr. McDowell.
Well, thank you, Chairman, and thank you to the witnesses for being with us today. The nations of Micronesia, the Marshall Islands, and Palau are, they sit on some of the most strategically important property on the planet, right along the sea lanes and the air routes that our military depend on to defend our territories and to keep the Indo-Pacific free and open. And if we lose the foothold there, we are never going to get it back. Under our existing treaties with these nations, the United States has exclusive defense and security rights across millions of square miles of the Pacific. That means that no foreign military, no Chinese naval base, no hostile radar station, no backdoor deals with Beijing, that strategic denial alone is worth far more than what we spend on these agreements. China understands this, which that is why Beijing is attempting to bribe small Pacific nations with loans, with port deals, infrastructure projects that are often coming with strings attached. They're trying to push the United States out of its own backyard and rewrite the balance of power in the Pacific. This is about strength, stability, and deterrence. A strong forward presence prevents war, and it reassures our allies. It protects our troops in Guam and Hawaii, and it makes it harder for China to threaten American interests without firing a shot. Letting these compacts lapse or weaken would be an open invitation for China to move in and make the Pacific less stable. It would put American forces at greater risk, and it would ultimately cost the taxpayers far more to fix later as we defend our national interests in these territories. So my question, Mr. Demipan, for you is, can you describe how China is actively trying to expand its influence in the Pacific Islands, and how COFA helps to block Beijing from gaining a strategic foothold in this region?
Thank you for that question, Congressman. And along with your lead up to the question, you're absolutely correct. We see a lot of activities that are happening in the FAS countries. And unfortunately, they're activities that are illegal or are meant to coerce a free and stable Indo-Pacific region. And so through the COFA commitments, the department is actively engaging in economic development grants, investing in those economic development in terms of infrastructure, in terms of building their capacity in the sectors of health, of education, and building a sense of good governance, so that in our efforts to instill stability, security, and prosperity in these countries, we believe that through these commitments, the societies of the COFA countries will understand that the enduring relationship that is on the cusp of 4 decades through the COFA, through its origination, is there, and that the commitment of the United States is valued at way higher amounts than soft power and land grabs and just business entities. So I think the United States has shown its commitment and continues to be fully committed to thwart those threats.
Mr. Grubel, how do compacts of free association give the United States concrete military and security advantages in the Pacific that we could not replicate if these nations were to drift towards China?
Very good question, sir. So the compacts are absolutely essential for national security in the Indo-Pacific. With the exclusive military rights, with the exclusive military access, every country's military, before they stop to refuel, like aircraft or ships, in the freely associated states, they have to ask for permission, not just from, it's normal diplomatic permission from the host government, but then the United States Department of War and the State Department have to clear on that. So, and that's something that we regularly do at Department of War. There's a State Department Office of PM Bureau for Defense Integration. They help coordinate that. So without that, this guarantees us our access across the Pacific, and it also ensures that no threat can emanate from the freely associated states.
Got it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentleman yields. At this time, the chair recognizes the gentlewoman from the state of Arizona, Ms. Grijalva, for 5 minutes. Ms. Grijalva.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the witnesses for being here. It's now been over a year since Congress revised the Compact of Free Association Amendments Act of 2024, which renewed our nation's commitment to the freely associated states and expanded federal benefits for veterans. I share Ranking Member Ledger Fernandez's disappointment that we don't have a VA representative here, because I think all of us have expressed some concern about ensuring that those benefits extend to veterans. The law is very clear. Funding is in place. Now the Trump administration must be held accountable for fully implementing the agreements and delivering the services that were promised. Under the compacts, FAS citizens are eligible to serve in the U.S. Armed Forces, and they've done so with honor. In return, Congress authorized expanded access to VA health care, including telehealth, mail-order pharmacy, beneficiary travel benefits, so COFA veterans can access even if they live far away from VA facilities. The Trump administration appears to be withholding implementation of these benefits and continues to stall in carrying out their federal obligation. At the same time, Trump's birthright citizenship executive order and immigration crackdown have created confusion amongst people from those freely associated states who are living lawfully and working in the U.S., even though their legal status is protected under the compacts. This hearing is about whether Trump administration is honoring both the letter and spirit of the compacts, including the obligations of COFA veterans and the freely associated states whose partnership is vital to U.S. security and regional stability. Since I know that neither of you can address fully some of those questions, which I'm sure will be submitted, I do have a question for Mr. Demapan. What are the current staffing levels in countries' embassies, and how do they compare to prior staffing levels?
Thank you, Congresswoman. I will have to defer that to my colleague from state because I
Okay,
don't have
great.
the staffing levels of the embassies.
Mr. Grupo.
Yeah, so the Department of State maintains embassies in each of the FAST countries, and the standard number of personnel is about four direct hires permanently assigned. And then there's often TDY personnel coming through on a regular basis.
And that's not changed?
That has not changed.
Okay. And so the compacts provide that a U.S. agency will assist in disasters. USAID previously led coordination of this assistance. What's the status of transitioning these responsibilities from USAID to the state?
Yes, thank you for asking that question. That was one of our highest priorities, was to transition the disaster response and preparation as quickly as possible from USAID to State Department, and that has been done. So the Bureau of East Asia Pacific Affairs handles disaster-related preparation issues, and the Bureau of Population, Refugees, and Migration will handle disaster response if there's a disaster.
And so I'm assuming there's been no increase in staffing to any of those departments, but just added duties?
In Manila, we have a unit of that handles the disaster response there. Some of them are former USAID officers who were hired to State Department.
Right, but overall, we haven't had a significant increase in staffing to take on the additional duties that have been transferred from USAID?
I would say, no, since we hired the former State Department USAID officers who were handling that, now they're with state, so we were able to even that out.
And can you share with us the documentation of that so we can see the staffing levels prior to USAID's dismantling and what it looks like now?
Yes, we can do that.
Okay, great. And then when were U.S. officials appointed to the compact oversight boards, and what impact has that had on your ability to carry out the oversight functions in a timely manner? And that might be, I don't know, either Mr. Grupo or Mr. Demapan.
I guess we were both assigned to that board.
Yep, I know. That's whatever you want.
No, so I took over. It was as just a regular permanent Foreign Service permanent change of assignment. I took duties as the office director in July, and then I was appointed the next month to the JIMCO and JIMFAC boards.
Okay. Mr. Demapan.
Thank you, Congresswoman. I too, I'm new to the department, but I was appointed to the JEMFAC, JEMCO boards and the interagency group in May. And so since I've been there, I've started basically essentially the same oversight period with Mr. Gribels here. And so we've been committed to taking our appointments and running with it to make sure that we're implementing what needs to be implemented and prioritizing the commitments of the compact.
Okay, thank you so much. I yield back.
The gentleman yields. At this time, the chair recognizes the gentleman from Guam, Mr. Moylan, for 5 minutes. Mr. Moylan.
Thank you, Chairman and Ranking Member. Thank you for hosting today's important hearing on the compacts and allowing me to wave on. It's a pleasure to be back here and seeing some of my familiar faces. The renewal of the Compact of Free Association in 2024 reflected our country's continued commitment to partnership with the freely associated states and served as the backbone to free, open, and diplomatic Indo-Pacific. For decades, the U.S. and the Republic of Palau, Federated States of Micronesia, and the Federated States of Marshall Islands as well. Likewise, the Marianas and these island nations share deep historical and cultural connections. Guam, like other host communities, continue to welcome our brothers and sisters from the neighboring islands. However, implementation of the renewal compacts were not as smooth as I had hoped. My colleagues will remember the delays in implementing the provisions intended to expand health care access and VA service. This is something I'm particularly concerned with and have joined my colleagues in pushing for quick implementation. Additionally, with issues with the United States Post Office mail continue to be a great concern. First question is, have there been any further delays or uncertainties in implementing the veteran service provisions under the 2024 compacts? Either one, please.
Thank you, Congressman. We're not aware of the specifics of the implementation. That is a question that we would have to defer to Veterans Affairs. But we are aware of the significance of the issue, and we continue to communicate the significance of the issue that has been relayed to the department from the FAS to the Department of Veterans Affairs.
Director, anything?
Yes, we can say that our interlocutors in the freely associated states are often raising the concerns about the Veterans Affairs, and we are passing those messages on to Department of Veterans Affairs. Thank you.
If we can stress that even more, it's a great concern, especially their commitment to the nation. They have so many Purple Heart winners over there as well. And if that's something we promise, then that's something we should deliver. Thank you for that. Next question. In the past year, I've heard many complaints about issues with Postal Service in the Pacific, where many face several delays and efficiencies can be introduced. But this applies to both the territories and the Free Associated States, and it's come to my attention that USPS is not maximizing the potential of its airmail contracts, which result in delay of service to residents. Can either of you speak to the logistic issues and the timelines associated with USPS services?
Thank you, Congressman. And yes, we have heard the same concerns from the FAS communities and as well as the territories. And that was a subject of our discussion at our December meeting in the interagency group on FAS. We were fortunate to have representatives from USPS there. And although they were not aware of what the underlying factors are that is causing the mail delays, they were very committed to taking it back and to ensuring, to finding ways on how to resolve the issue. And so that meeting just took place in mid-December, so we're waiting to hear some affirmative action back from the due-outs that were discussed at that meeting. I'm also happy to report that the recent feedback from the FAS have seen very few delays and packages, as I think some of the glitches have been sorted out. But we continue to track that issue.
I don't have anything to add, sir. Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate that. Maybe we can help the Postal Service understand where there's no road going to. We can't put it on a truck. It ends up going on a ship. We do have a commercial airlines that provides this service. They say we can pick up these packages, but we're not allowed to, and we have all this room. They're willing to just continue in doing it without an increase in cost, but I'm glad you folks are looking into it, and we really need that help as well. I may have time for one more question. So generally, how have the 2024 compacts been implemented? And are there delays in areas that we have not discussed?
Thank you, Congressman. I don't believe there are any significant delays in areas that we have not discussed. But in terms of implementation, I believe that the department and our interagency partners are working very hard at ensuring that the commitments are upheld. For the Department of Interior, I can say that we have an active engagement with the FAS countries to push economic assistance grants toward their way.
Director?
Nothing to add, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to work with both of you. I'm looking forward to getting the compact agreement finalized and helping our free associated states and especially our territories. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
The gentleman's time has expired. At this time, the chair recognizes the gentlewoman from the Commonwealth of Northern Mariana Islands, Ms. King Hines, for 5 minutes. Ms. King Hines.
Thank you, Chairman Hurd and Ranking Member, for allowing me to participate in today's hearing. And thank you to the witnesses for coming before us today. My district, the Northern Mariana Islands, has a deep interest in the affairs of the freely associated states, going back to our time as a single political unit, as the trust territory of the Pacific Islands before we became a Commonwealth and entered into political union with the United States. A lot of the conversations that I've been having within this past year as it relates to the freely associated states is a misunderstanding of what the relationship is all about, right? And I guess, the COFA agreement was never designed as a foreign, to me anyway, was never designed as a foreign aid in the traditional sense. It was a strategic bargain. The United States receives critical defense and security rights in the Pacific, and in return, the United States commits to helping ensure that these nations are economically stable, self-governing, and resilient. And so I wanted to just put that out there as, as a statement of fact, I think, because there's a lot of misunderstanding as to what the COFA agreement is intended to be. So I wanted to ask this question to Mr. Damapan, who is actually the first representative of Micronesian descent on the Joint Economic Management Communities. And I want to see what your thoughts are on what you see as the greatest economic and security threat to the freely associated states.
Thank you, Congresswoman. I truly appreciate that question because it is a deep concern for the department. For the department, the most significant threat in that region is depopulation of the communities. And depopulation is premised on the lack of available services and opportunities in the FAS countries. And the COFA agreement can prevent that from happening because the COFA agreement offers a platform to develop the economies of these countries, to improve the livelihoods of these societies, to improve healthcare outcomes, to improve education outcomes, and to improve infrastructure needs. And I appreciate this question because on a personal note, I am married to an FAS citizen. And yes, I'm of Micronesian descent, and I have the opportunity to bring the work and the perspective of an islander to the table through the GEMCO and the GEMFAC and the EAG and the IAG. And so I'm very grateful for this opportunity to be able to provide input from the department's point of view and to ensure that the commitments that America has made for a free and open Indo-Pacific, for a free and open, freely associated states is there and it's upheld.
So let me follow up then to ask you, what new actions are the Department of Interior, what new action is the Department of Interior taking to propel economic development in the freely associated states under the renewed compact?
Thank you again, Congresswoman. So under the renewed compact, there are many new projects that have rolled out, and the department has been actively working with our counterparts in the FAS countries. In fact, the GEMFAC, the GEMCO, and the EAG has also been actively working on projects that are out there. So we're looking at grants that have been awarded to invest in schools, upgrading health facilities and health centers, upgrading the ports, upgrading power generation distribution to ensure that we can harden these needs in the communities as much as possible. And so, to this point, we've already issued $750 million in payments just since the entry of force into this round of the covenant, of the COFA agreements.
So just one quick question. Some of these benefits to our FAS citizens, like food stamp or NAP, for example, has been extended, right? But in the Marianas, for example, we don't have a SNAP program, we have a NAP program, but we don't have the additional resources to be able to extend that benefit to our FAS citizens. And so how can we work together to be able to ensure that these benefits are afforded to them wherever they go through the compact agreement?
I don't have that information with me right now, Congresswoman, but I'd be happy to take it back.
All right, thank you. I'm out of time. Thank you. I yield back.
The gentleman yields. At this time, the chair recognizes himself for 5 minutes. Mr. Demapan, in your testimony, you say the PRC, the People's Republic of China, has deployed an extensive influence operation aimed at corroding, corrupting, and coercing democracies. What aspects of that influence operation give you greatest concern, and are the COFA agreements addressing those issues?
Thank you, Chair. So all aspects of the PRC activities and the FAS are of grave concern to us. And so we believe that through the commitments of the COFA agreements, the United States has this opportunity to thwart those threats by...
Is there any threat that we're not addressing through the COFA agreements that you're aware of?
I'm not aware of any, Chair.
I have a question about a meeting that happened December 19, 2025. The interagency group on the FAS met. Congress has not received an official briefing on how that meeting went. Could you speak to some of the issues that were raised in that meeting?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I could. That meeting was just held a couple of weeks ago, or mid-December. Some of the issues that we discussed there were the concerns raised by the FAS on veterans' access to services. USPS mail delays were discussed there. We had a discussion with HHS on the reestablishment of the Head Start program in the Marshall Islands and in the Federated States of Micronesia. We also had a discussion with the Peace Corps on reestablishing their presence in the FAS countries.
What were the follow-ups for DOI that came out of that meeting?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Chair?
What were the follow-ups for the Department of the Interior that came out of that meeting?
So at that meeting, we did have we generated a list of do-outs, and the representatives of those agencies that were at the December 19 meeting took those do-outs back to their agencies, and so we're now waiting to hear back on some of the action items that need to be reported back to the IAG.
Mr. Gruber, how about on the State Department side? Were there follow-up actions generated from that December 19th meeting for State?
So the follow-ups from the State Department were more associated with more chairing the IAG. So what the State Department's with Interior will come up with the checklist, and we're going to be working with all the other departments on all these lists, on these items as a follow-up on that. So checking with them to those methods.
Can I ask you the question about China that I asked your colleague? What aspects of the influence operation of the Chinese, the People's Republic of China is exercising give you the most concern, and do you believe that those threats or challenges are being addressed through the COFA agreements, or are they not being addressed?
So China uses diplomatic, information, and economic tools, some of them malign, some of them normal, to expand its influence. And what the COFA agreements, the economic assistance related with them, what's most important is that it creates an economic vacuum from being established. China loves vacuums. And so if we didn't have the GIMCO and GIMFAC committees, these sector grants and so on, to help these countries economically with their services, China would be filling that gap. So from that point, I think the COFA agreements have done about 80–90% of our job, but there's always a few gaps that we have to be using through regular State Department and other interagency efforts. So,
is depopulation a concern of yours? Is that fundamentally one of the top issues?
yes. So these as we know, the FAST countries, all of them are concerned about outward immigration to the United States, perhaps too much of it. And sometimes that's got to be filled by other third country nationals. There's a lot of Filipinos, for example, working in them. That's fine, but that shows where they have to get some of their source of labor is coming from other countries in the region, including as well as China. You also see some Chinese, just like in other Pacific Island countries, you're seeing people moving in from China as well.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Gribble. Mr. Demapan, in September 2025, the DOI Office of the Inspector General published a report on late single audit submissions by the American territories and FAS. What steps is DOI taking to address the late single audit submissions by the FAS?
Thank you, Chair, and I'm happy to report that even before the IG report came out, under the current leadership at Insular and International Affairs, we had raised this flag with the FAS countries and the territories at the beginning of this administration because we saw the significant delays in audit timeliness. And so we raised that flag and we had begun the efforts to try to assist the countries in getting their audits back up to date. And so the efforts that we have taken since, and the IG report came out in between that undertaking, we have provided economic assistance, technical assistance grants in the form of $250,000 to each government, and that means in the FSM, the national government, and each of their state governments. And so we've provided $250,000 for each government to hire additional manpower to address audit needs and audit timeliness. We have also engaged in a contract, independent contract with an audit firm that is contracted by Interior to go out, to deploy out to the islands to also assist in audit timeliness. And so that contract is rolling out on February 1st.
Thank you very much. My time has now expired, and I want to thank both of our witnesses for their valuable testimony and also for my colleagues for their questions. The members of the committee may have some additional questions for you as witnesses, and we would ask that you respond to those in writing. And with that, thank you very much, gentlemen. I would ask the clerk to please reset the table for our second panel. I would invite our next witnesses to go ahead and take their seats. Our ambassadors. We can't start without our Dean of the Ambassador Corps here. Okay. Great. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce the witnesses for our second panel. The first is Mr. Hershey Kyoda, Ambassador to the United States from the Embassy of the Republic of Palau in Washington, D.C. Our next witness is His Excellency Jackson Sorum, Ambassador to the United States from the Embassy of the Federated States of Micronesia here in Washington, D.C. And last is His Excellency Charles Paul, Ambassador to the United States from the Embassy of the Republic of the Marshall Islands, also here in Washington, D.C. Let me remind the witnesses that under committee rules, you will limit your statements to 5 minutes, but that your entire written statement will appear on the hearing record. To begin your testimony, there should be a talk button in front of you. Go ahead and press that. We do use timing lights. When the light is green, you are able to speak. When it turns yellow, you have 1 minute left, and when it turns red, I would ask that you please wrap up your opening statement or the answer to any question that you're giving as quickly as possible. And I'm going to allow each of you to testify before member questioning begins. And with that, if you are ready, Ambassador Kyoda, I recognize you for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, ranking member, and distinguished member of the subcommittee on Indian and Insular Affairs. Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity to appear before this subcommittee. The relationship between the United States and Palau under the Compact of Free Association continues to improve. Our relationship is so close that the last U.S. Indo-Pacific commander said once that Palau is part of the homeland. We have cooperated and collaborated on many issues, and we will continue to do so. I hope that you will continue to have hearings like this to discuss issues and problems that we may have in the future. Generally, the implementation of the Compact of Free Association Act of 2024 is progressing well. Funding, projects, and programs are making the intended impact. Assistance is being dispersed in a timely manner. Some infrastructure projects are under construction, and contracts for some will be awarded soon. Most of Palau's domestic responsibility under the Compact of Free Association Act have been met. Some are being fulfilled exceptionally well. The construction of the Peleliu Airfield and its facilities is underway at a remarkable pace. The environmental impact assessment and work permits for the renovation and improvements of Malacca Seaport are completed. These projects are important to the United States military and to the Palau commerce as well. Some areas are designated for exclusive military use, and some are designed for joint use. The military's early warning radar system is almost operational. The missiles test shots have been successful. For the most part, the Compact Act has been implemented as intended, as I said. There are a few provisions, however, that have not been or have not fully been implemented. As a result, our citizens in our bilateral relationship are denied of these benefits or programs. One of them is the Employment Authorization Document, or EAD, or sometimes referred to as work permit. In the new compact, we were able to successfully negotiate that citizens of Palau won't be required to have EAD to work in the United States, and it's in the law. But the Department of Homeland Security continue to require our citizens to obtain work permit in order to work. As a matter of fact, 2 days ago, one of our citizens called the embassy and request assistance because he was terminated because he didn't have a EAD. And one of their site, it's called the Fact Sheet Republic of Palau. When you go to that site, it said that although EAD is no longer required, it is highly recommended that citizens of Palau obtain EAD. This is something that we need to discuss more with Homeland Security to see what we can do to prevent this from happening again. In-state tuition is another one. The compact, the current compact, we negotiated to have our students pay in-state tuition, and the Department of Education put that in their website. But there are many public colleges and universities that still deny our citizens of this opportunity. I guess we have to ensure that this institutions are reminded of this law. Another issue is the recent new rule on commercial driver's license. The Department of Transportation proposed new rule on commercial driver's license would disqualify aliens not domiciled in the U.S., which include citizens of freely associated states. But FAS citizens are domiciled here under the compact. So I like to thank Secretary DeSambre and Deputy Assistant Secretary Demepan for writing a letter to the Secretary of Transportation explaining our special relationship so that our citizens would be able to continue to obtain commercial driver's license.
Thank you, Ambassador. If I could ask if you wrap up really quickly, please. I apologize, but we're out of time
Okay.
here.
Okay, the veterans benefit, everybody talks about this. The U.S. military recruits freely associated citizens to serve in the U.S. military. So since November, this Congress has enacted two laws pressing the department to provide telehealth care, and mail prescription medicine. U.S. military veterans living in Palau.
Mr. Ambassador, thank you very much for this testimony. I promise you that everything that you've submitted in writing will definitely appear
Thank you so much.
in the record. And at this time, the chair now recognizes Ambassador Sorum for 5 minutes. Ambassador Sorum.
Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member, thank you for the opportunity to testify before you today regarding the implementation of the Compact of Free Association Amendments Act. My name is Jack Sorum, and I'm the Ambassador of the Federated States of Micronesia to the United States. Our countries enjoy a close, mutually beneficial relationship with long-held diplomatic, economic, and military partnership underpinned by the Compact of Free Association, or COFA. Our bond was reinforced in 2024 when the Congress voted unanimously to update key provisions of the Compact for another 20 years. This critical law provides updates and extends economic assistance provisions to help the FSM build a more prosperous, self-sustaining economy. The agreement restores and extends other important federal benefits for FSM citizens in the United States. We are extremely grateful for the leadership by this committee and other champions to pass the act, as well as your dedication to ensure proper implementation of the agreement. I would also like to highlight the Department of War's planned infrastructure investment in the state of Yap as announced in March 2024. We are pleased to continue our collaboration with the Department of War on these projects to advance our shared security and defense priorities in the Indo-Pacific region. These projects would not have been possible without the continued success of the Compact in bringing our nations closer together than ever before. I am pleased to provide an update on the implementation of the amended Compact Agreement. The agreement provides annual sector grant funding in key areas to support essential health, education, and infrastructure projects. The sector grants help support our hospitals and clinics, assist in the funding of our educational system, and support critical infrastructure improvement projects for telecommunications, roads, and bridges. We are also grateful to the United States for its additional contribution to the Compact Trust Fund following passage of the COFA Amendments Act. This infusion grows the Compact Fund and continues the FSM on its path to long-term budgetary self-reliance. The FSM has worked closely with current and previous administrations on implementation of key benefits and programs authorized under the law. In 2024, several agencies started the restoration of public benefits for the FSM, including programs such as SNAP, TANF, and FEMA assistance for eligible FSM citizens in the United States. Additionally, we have worked with the Department of Education and Health and Human Services on the continuation and restoration of key programs benefiting FSM citizens, including Pell Grants and Head Start. We appreciate Congress' support through the continuing resolution to provide funding for the Head Start program. Implementation of the agreement is going well, but we have encountered challenges, specifically for the Department of Veterans Affairs regarding the support for veterans in the FSM. The FSM is extremely proud to have one of the highest enlistment rates per capita in the United States military. Sadly, when our veterans return home, they face significant cost and access barriers to VA health care. We are pleased that the COFA Amendments Act give the VA new authorities to provide enhanced access to care, including health care, beneficiary travel, and mail-order pharmacy services for veterans in the FSM. Unfortunately, we are still waiting on the VA to deliver on your mandate. After your last oversight hearing in September 2024, the VA started productive talks with us, but those were suspended in April 2025. We stand ready to restart talks and finalize the agreement as soon as possible. We appreciate the committee's leadership, which led to bipartisan, bicameral legislation, and ultimately Senate passage last month. We look forward to working with Congress and the administration to see that our veterans have access and benefits they earn through their services to ensure the VA's implementation is consistent with the congressional intent of the law unanimously approved by the Congress. In closing, I would like to highlight the importance of restoring the Peace Corps in the FSM and appreciate the members here who have supported that effort. Thank you, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, Ambassador Sorum, for your testimony. The chair now recognizes Ambassador Paul for 5 minutes. Ambassador Paul.
Chairman Hurd, Ranking Member Ledger Fernandez, and distinguished members, thank you for the opportunity. The compact is not merely an assistance framework, it is the foundation of a partnership between the U.S. and the Marshall Islands, advancing U.S. national security, regional stability, and long-term resilience in our islands and the Pacific. I will focus on 5 priority issues. First, the bonding requirement. Compact infrastructure is essential to economic stability, workforce development, and our national resilience. New interim bonding guidance, however, risks excluding capable local contractors, not because of performance risk, but because of structural financial barriers. For more than 2 decades, the RMI has successfully implemented projects under a 10% bonding standard, combined with strict safeguards, reimbursable payments only after inspection, mandatory insurance, and retainage through a warranty period. This framework has operated without defaults due to local contractor performance. The true issue is not contractor experience or audit history. It is the absence of a functioning surety market in remote Pacific jurisdictions. Bonding that relies on letters of credit or full collateralization are simply unavailable locally, and effectively precluding capable and qualified Marshallese firms from being prime contractors. The RMI therefore seeks restoration of a 10% bonding standard, which proved to be effective in promoting public funds while enabling local participation, essential to long-term economic growth and stability. Second is the definition of programs. Use of the supplemental health grant and the trust fund contributions to island adversely affected by U.S. nuclear weapon testing and waste disposal of ICBM testing have been held delayed due to differing interpretations of the term programs in proposal for use. This is not a technical or an administrative question. It is an issue of policy and intent. The RMI has formally transmitted its definition, which is consistent with the compact and related agreements. The U.S. has responded with its own and a proposed agenda for discussion. The RMI is currently preparing its response so that the government-to-government discussions can be scheduled as soon as possible to reach a shared, consistent interpretation and allow compact resources to be used further without further delay. Third is the nuclear legacy. The unresolved legacy of the U.S. nuclear testing and waste disposal in the Marshall Islands is not abstract history. It continues to affect families, communities, and our association. From 1946 through 1958, Marshallese communities were moved back and forth away from their homes and islands and exposed to fallout and continuing radiation. The consequences did not end when testing ceased or nuclear waste, including from Nevada, was disposed of in our islands. They persist today in health effects on even a fourth generation, loss of land, and intergenerational trauma from, most of all, the atmospheric bomb testing in the U.S. ever detonated. This committee helped determine a key fact. It found that the day before the largest ever bomb tested at evacuated Bikini, the Atomic Energy Commission learned that the winds had shifted and fallout would land on Rongelap and Woodruff atolls, but proceeded despite the fact that the people had not been evacuated. That record matters, not to assign blame, but to ensure that the issue is addressed fully and responsibly. The Marshall Islands proceeded with the 2024 Compact Amendments in good faith, with an shared understanding with members of Congress that the nuclear legacy would remain an open matter. Congress reinforced that understanding with explicit provisions for reconsideration of the issue, support for a nuclear legacy museum, access to declassified records, programs for affected communities, etc. Given this committee's proud record and oversight role, it is well positioned to ensure this issue is finally resolved. Fourth, veterans healthcare. I addressed this most direct and disappointing failure in implementing the Compact Act in a Veterans Affairs Committee Health Subcommittee hearing on a bill ensured that the VA provides the health care intended by the Compact Act, sponsored by Congresswoman King Hines, with others, including Congresswoman Radewagen, yesterday. I ask that my statement be included in the record of this hearing, too, and that you support the legislation. Finally, the tuna tariff issue. In October 2025, U.S. Customs and Border Protection reclassified tuna harvested in the RMI exclusive economic zone as foreign origin based solely on vessel flag, reversing decades of established practice without prior consultation. As a result, tuna now faces a 45% tariff, effectively closing the U.S. market. Tuna is a cornerstone of our economy, supporting government revenue, employment, and food security. This directly implicates Compact implementation. In response, the Nilidjala of the Parliament of the Republic of the Marshall Islands has unanimously adopted Resolution 60, addressing the legal and economic implications of this action. Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I respectfully request that Nilidjala Resolution 60 be introduced into the record of this hearing.
Mr. Investor, your time is almost up.
Okay.
If you could conclude your remarks.
Thank you. In closing, the RMI approaches Compact implementation as a shared responsibility grounded in trust, accountability, and partnership. Where challenges arise, we believe that the best resolved through timely, good faith government-to-government engagement. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. At this time, I am going to be recognizing members for 5 minutes of questions, and I will start by recognizing myself for 5 minutes. This is a question for all three of you ambassadors. Under the COFA agreement, citizens of the FAS are eligible to serve in the United States military, and my understanding is that the FAS countries have some of the highest rates of enlistment per capita, even when compared to the 50 United States. My question is this: the COFA include provisions addressing VA benefits owed to U.S. veterans in the FAS. Could each of you speak, please, briefly to the importance of providing veterans benefits to FAS veterans of the U.S. military who return to the FAS after their service, and also talk a little bit about the challenges that FAS veterans face? Ambassador Kyoda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Palau is the, I'm sorry, for Palau, it is Veterans Administration, benefits. Right now, we have more than 250 veterans who are registered as members of the Palau Veterans Association in Palau. There may be more, but only 250 are registered. And right now there's no benefits. So we want to request this committee and everybody in Congress to please. Right now there's two laws that provide for benefits to veterans living abroad in Palau and FSM and RMI, but they have not, implemented. So we ask that, Palau is so far from Guam and from Hawaii, and they cannot afford to travel to Hawaii for medical care. So if this medical health care is provided to them in Palau, we would appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Ambassador Sorum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the question. Let me begin by providing some background information as to the situation with our veterans. I think that should shed light on the kind of challenges that our veterans face. Because of our remoteness, because of our isolation, when veterans return to the islands, they face the issue of access to health care. So they are forced to travel long distance, often to Guam and to Hawaii, to receive the services. And in doing so, they are forced to pay for expensive tickets on their own in hopes that they will be able to be reimbursed for it. Sometimes they get reimbursed, sometimes not. And even in the process of doing that, in visiting, whether it's Guam or Hawaii, those services are often longer because of appointments. And so they will be forced to do some lodging, and expenses of those are very, very expensive. I think the picture I'm trying to paint here is for our citizens that challenges that our face is very real. So those are the kind of things that they go through. But I think it's also good that we focus on what we think should be the solutions in trying to find this. And we've, like I said in my testimony, we had started the talks with the VA on this, outlining some of the areas that we can address.
Right.
One is beneficiary travel. Another is telehealth. Another is mail services for pharmaceuticals. And yeah.
That is very helpful, Ambassador. Thank you. And I want to give Ambassador Paul time as well. Ambassador Paul, can you speak to the importance of providing veterans benefits to FAS veterans who are of the U.S. military and some of the challenges they face?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, the veterans, I think we could all agree that, some of the challenges and the issues that they face, whether it's medical or mental health issues, it's unique to veterans, and we're seeing a lot of that in the Marshall Islands, and it's very important that the care that they're promised is provided. And thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Great. Thank you very much, Ambassador Paul. And I see that my time has expired. And Ambassador Paul, I want to follow up on a request you made. You made an official request into the record. As your statement is added fully into the record, please have your team send that over after this hearing. We'll make sure that that document gets entered into the record as well. Okay, Ambassador?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. At this time, I would like to recognize the ranking member of subcommittee, Ms. Ledger-Fernandez, for 5 minutes. Ms. Ledger-Fernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm going to go back, and I'm going to get to the witnesses in a bit, but the ranking member of the Natural Resources Committee began the hearing talking about the issue of Greenland. And he asked the ambassadors, has there been any discussion at state about taking over Greenland? And people might have said, well, why are we talking about that here? Well, because this is the Committee of Insular Affairs. And because we should not be talking about taking over Greenland, because it is an independent nation. It is part of Denmark. We have a relationship with the freely associated states because they freely entered into compacts with us. And this is not theoretical, what he raised. Secretary of the Interior, Secretary Bergrum, just posted a map that shows the new interior contains Greenland. The new interior does not contain Greenland. President Trump has said, it is psychologically important for me to own Greenland, for him, not for the nation. And he says, I am not opposed to using nuclear force if he needed it to acquire Greenland. He then said that the only thing that can stop me is my own mind, my own morality. Well, I need to tell you, President Trump, you cannot go and acquire a NATO state because you want it, so you can be psychologically happier. Congress can stop you from invading a NATO state. We need to remember that NATO states were our allies in fighting fascism in World War II. We have no business trying to take over a NATO state, an element of a NATO state. So Congress needs to act, and I hope that my Republicans will join with the Democrats because this is a bipartisan issue. We should not be allowing a president to say he's going to take over a nation state, a member of NATO. This is an outrage. But let's talk about what is before this committee, the Insular Affairs Committee that looks at interior issues. And I am concerned about an element of depopulation that was mentioned earlier. And I think that I was going to ask a lot of questions about the VA, but I think that I thank the chairman for going into detail about that. But I think this issue about depopulation relates to if people can't get care on their island, they will leave. But also, Ambassador Paul, you mentioned the issue of the tariffs. The tariffs are wreaking havoc on prices in the United States, but tariffs are also hurting your nation. Can you go on to what happens when you can no longer, because of the tariff, sell tuna to us? How does that hurt the ability of people to stay on the island and make a living?
Thank you, Ranking Member. So yes, the tuna tariff is really hurting our tuna industry. Like I said, effectively closing the U.S. market to us. And tuna is a bedrock of our government resources. It provides jobs. It provides opportunities for us. And that and a couple other things, and I mentioned the bonding issue. All those things contribute to jobs, the loss of jobs, opportunities that will drive up immigration out. And obviously the Marshall Islands government is doing everything in its power to try to keep our people, lowering taxes, giving incentives for people to stay in the islands. But it's always about jobs and opportunities. And and we're trying our best to try to mitigate those issues. So that's why we're pushing for government-to-government discussions to try to resolve a lot of these issues before they get out of hand.
Right, and we should not be imposing such high tariffs. Was it 45% on tuna? Am I remembering that correctly?
That is correct, ma'am.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You're an ally. You're important to us for our own military security. And so I'm sorry about that. And just if I could just have a yes or no, Ambassador Kyoto, your statement about this is impacting your family itself, the fact that they're veterans and they can't get care. And also, Ambassador Sorum, the issue of depopulation, is the lack of VA care contributing to depopulation?
If you could turn on your microphone, Mr. Ambassador, and answer very quickly, please.
Answer very quickly because we've run out of time.
I'm sorry, let me just say, even some of our veterans who live in the United States have gone back to Palau, but when they, as soon as they find out there's no health care, they pack up and leave to Guam or Hawaii or back to where they were from. So it is difficult. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Soren.
Yes, I would share the same sentiments as my colleagues are saying. I've been around the country with visiting states, different parts of the country, and we have a large population of our veterans who are also here in the United States. And the reason why they're not going back is because they can't access the benefits back home. Preference would always be to be back in the islands, but because of those accessibility barriers, they chose to remain out here.
Well, you have beautiful islands that I'm sure people would love to go back to, and with that, I yield back, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. The gentleman's time has expired. At this time, the chair recognizes the vice chair of the subcommittee, the gentlewoman from American Samoa, Ms. Radewagen, for 5 minutes. Ms. Radewagen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, Your Excellencies. My question is for all the ambassadors, but my question is very similar to the one I asked Mr. Demapan earlier, and quite a bit of it has been covered, but let me ask anyway, are there any aspects of the agreement you think might benefit from clarifying language or direction from Congress to avoid a similar situation as what happened with VA?
Thank you, Congresswoman, for the question. And as it pertains to VA, I think the three of us here have been clear on our position on VA, on the barriers that we're facing. And it couldn't be any clearer than what the Congress has mandated in the law that authorizes VA to provide these benefits. What the obstacles are and what the challenges are is something that I think we need to work through with the U.S. government. But to your question, yes, I think Congress has been clear with that authority, and it's a matter of implementation. And I hope that the administration will take note of that and proceed with whatever we need to do to implement that authority provided by law as passed by the Congress.
Ambassador Paul?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. For the RMI, it's specifically on the programs issue, and this issue has come up with both in the trust fund agreement and the supplemental health fund. Both RMI and the U.S., we have differing views on what a program is. Obviously, programs is not defined in the compact, so that's the issue, and it's causing disruptions in operations and planning for the RMI. And hopefully within the next couple of weeks, we'll be able to meet to resolve those issues with the administration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And to the Dean of the entire Diplomatic Corps, Ambassador Kyoto.
Thank you, Congresswoman. First of all, I'd like to thank you for co-sponsoring the bill to provide again benefits to veterans living in the freely associated states. Right now, there are, as I recall, there are two laws, the Continuing Resolution and the NDAA Act. They have authorization to VA to start providing health care benefits to our citizens who are living at home, veterans who are living at home. But VA has yet to really show their attempt to abide by this legislation and law. And hopefully this bill and other bills pending in Congress to provide the benefits to our citizens who serve. They didn't only they are not only entitled, they serve. Some of them made the ultimate sacrifice, and I think they deserve to get these benefits. Thank you very much.
And lastly, I would like to give a special greeting to retired Colonel Leo Falcom, who is sitting right behind Ambassador Kyoto. I want to thank you for your service and your sacrifice to our nation.
The gentleman yields. At this time, the chair recognizes the gentleman from Guam, Mr. Moylan, for 5 minutes. Mr. Moylan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Your Excellencies, for providing your statements. I'm a soldier myself, and it's very unfair that, well, we should be correcting this problem right away. I'm glad you're in discussion with the VA, and so are the Marianas. We have very similar situations. In fact, it's a great struggle as well, traveling to Hawaii. We could go to the Philippines, but there's still a lot of transportation issues with that too. One big thing, our problem is having at least have a regional office for the VA on Guam. We hope we can also service the free associated states as well. The processing of that paperwork is so important. It's interesting to know that within the Philippines, they have a regional office and they have the medical facility as well since World War II. But yet our free associated states and Mariana Islands have none. And the Philippines services about 11,000 people. Between the Marianas and the free associated states and American Samoa, we're over 20,000 that we can be servicing. And we should. Now, I proposed removing the regional office from the Philippines and moving that at least to Guam. We'll continue that fight, but I hear you, and I want to make sure our veterans, our soldiers, and the history of the free associated states' involvement in the wars with the United States and the continuing partnership that you offer with the United States and the sacrifices that your community is doing is worthy, much more worthy of that, I think, and should be brought back to support us. So I'll continue to update you on how that goes. In the meantime, my concern is also with the terrorists and the fishing industry. And how is do you see additional aggression from the CCP in the waters and fishing of the tunas with the IUU fishing? And is that being addressed also? Your ambassadors, please, Your Excellencies, whoever wishes to chime in on that. Thank you.
Let me start by tourists first. Just before COVID hit, we had so many tourists from PRC coming to Palau. And they were trying to ask us to switch from Taiwan to PRC. So they fled the market, tourist market in Palau. But when we didn't budge, they stopped tourists. So the economy went down because the tourist was down, and then we got hit by COVID, so our economy was so down. But we didn't change because we believe that we believe in democracy, and Taiwan stands for democracy. That's why we believe in it. There are some other influence by Chinese, and we have asked the United States, especially the CIA, to assist us. So they have identified those illegal companies or illegal individuals that are tied with CCP. So our president have identified them and put them in undesirable aliens. and we send them back. So this is in hope that we can do legitimate business when they come to Palau, instead of just picking up somebody without knowing his or her background. Unfortunately, some of these illegal activities going on in Palau are also supported by some of our leaders, on the left-wing leaders. So it's hard, but we are making progress, and we thank the United States for assisting us in this process.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Just a couple minutes there. Anybody else, briefly? Seconds.
Yeah, let me just speak to the issue of fisheries in general as a major sector for the islands. And this is very true for the three of us. Fishing is our #1 economy. So when you speak to fishing industry, it's $1 million industry. And when you speak to IUU, that's also $1 million loss, more than $1 million loss. So you can see the critical need to have this kind of cooperations. And we're grateful for the U.S. Coast Guard doing all the monitoring, ship riders agreement that provide for monitoring and surveillance.
Your
in
Excellency,
fisheries.
I'm sorry, I'm out of time. But thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The gentleman's time has expired. At this time, the chair recognizes the gentlewoman from the Northern Mariana Islands, Ms. King-Hines, for 5 minutes. Ms. King-Hines.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the ambassadors for being with us today. You know, all too often I sit in these rooms where everybody is an expert in our island communities, our economies, but nobody's talking about how does the government keep the light on, how do we put food on the table, and how do we secure a future for our children in our islands. And so your presence here is very important so we can hear directly on record what the challenges are. And I, want to give you guys the opportunity to each share which implementation issues are top of mind for each of you and why these are important to upholding U.S. commitments. And any of you can start, and I know Ambassador Sorum was speaking about the fisheries, so I'm not sure if that's #1 on the issue, but I guess you can go ahead and start if you wanted to further elaborate.
Yeah, let me speak fisheries since I've already talked to it. But in terms of implementation, top of mind implementation issues for the compact, I would like to highlight again the veterans issues because I think it presents a different challenge now in its own implementation. We've talked about it, the previous panel have talked about it. So I want to put on the table that that is a challenge in terms of implementation. The second item that I want to associate myself with my colleague here is the bonding issue. Just because it provides a different challenge in the way the bonding requirements are set up now, it currently eliminates our local companies to participate in the process of compact development and economic development. So, but I also want to say that we are working through this with our partners. I'm grateful for DOI and Department of State. We're looking at options. We've been communicating. We've given them their views. They provided their views as well. The process is ongoing. We are looking at what they have come up with. So those two items, I think, in terms of implementation. Thank you.
Ma'am, thank you so much for that question. I just want to also add to the issues. Top of mind for us, obviously, is also the bonding issue. Programs, we're trying to clear that up now with the U.S. and the nuclear legacy issue. But back to the bonding issue, if I may, to give you an example. The RMI government is looking to build a new hospital. That hospital could probably cost about $100 million. There's absolutely no way local contractors would be able to bid on that project because of the bonding requirement. Now, ironically, they'll be the ones who will build it because they'll be most likely subcontracted. So it defeats the purpose of this whole process. And we're making that clear to the U.S. administration, and hopefully we can come to an agreement on that. And obviously, the nuclear legacy issue. It's at the forefront of everyone's mind, and it's something that, we feel that it needs to be addressed. It has to be addressed. There's a moral obligation to try to address it once and for all. So we'll look forward to working with with Congress on trying to see how we can move those issues forward. Thank you.
Ambassador Kyoto, I have about a minute and 20 seconds left.
This is very quick. Last year, the last September 2024, when we had our last hearing here, I mentioned about the need for a new hospital in Palau, because our hospital was built probably more than 40 years ago during the Trust Territory time, and it was built in a low area. So right now, when what they call king tide or storm, the floor is inundated by flood, seawater coming into. So, and on top of that, it's located across the causeway, so it's very hard for emergency. Fortunately, we have been able to get an agreement with the U.S. to provide a new hospital. So my request is, if the administration request funding from Congress, I would appreciate if you help us in this new hospital, because we definitely need it. Thank you.
I'm out of time, I yield back.
The gentleman's time has expired. At this time, I want to thank each of our witnesses, the ambassadors, for their valuable testimony, and also to my colleagues on the dais here for their valuable questions. Members of this committee may have some additional questions for each of you witnesses, and we'd ask that you respond to those in writing. Under Committee Rule 3, members of the committee must submit those questions to the committee clerk by 5 p.m. on Tuesday, January 20th, 2026. The hearing record will be held open for 10 business days for these responses. If there is no further business, without objection, the committee stands adjourned. Thank you.